Hey there. Okay, so here is the story for anybody who doesn't know the whole story about my mother and Elon Musk. First of all, this has been going on through a few different scammers for many, many years. She had her, we had joint bank accounts forever. For until a few years ago. And I would wake up some days and find out the bank was like, $500,000 overdrawn. I'm not kidding you. One day I woke up, I have a screenshot. It was $888,000 overdrawn. And so I got off the bank account. I'm not playing this game. Bank of America, she gets involved with these scammers, and we had Bank of America for like 30 years, and they would kind of slap her on the wrist and just, freeze the funds and open her a new account. They did that like 5 times, and then the last time it happened, they called her into an actual branch and had a big discussion with her, and then the next thing I knew, she opened an account at another bank at Walmart. So I don't know. I mean, I could guess, but so frankly, I'm surprised it lasted that long. So anyway, so here's the issue with this. I don't think this is funny. I first started posting this because I'm just so furious and upset with it. Everybody's dying laughing. It's hysterical. It's hysterical if you don't live in it. I live in it. It's actually just unbearable. And it's been going on now for 7 years at least. And so, I mean, geez. And so, so a few years ago, she got involved. Of course, we take these long trips, across the country selling jewelry. And we had loaded up, we had a ton of jewelry. I always say we farm jewelry, like we grow a crop of jewelry and then we go sell it, plant, harvest, sell, same concept. And so we were headed out to sell jewelry. The car was loaded, and we went all the way to like Georgia to work our way up and down the coast and come back. Well, mind you, although we travel around like hippies and we don't really look like we're doing too well, there's sometimes like, $300,000 worth of jewelry in the car. That's not uncommon at all. And so she's texting frantically on her phone. First of all, nobody in her entire family has had anything to do with her in all of my entire life almost. Really since a few years after the divorce, when she got a divorce, and of course this is all hindsight, I didn't know this as a kid, but when she got a divorce, she sort of had the impression that all of the relatives in her family would pitch in and take care of us if she moved back to her hometown. And that lasted for a little while, but she basically, she rented an apartment for a short time, and, the payments were just daunting. And so she moved us in people's houses to such a degree that they left all of their stuff and moved out while we lived in their houses. All of our stuff was in storage buildings all of those years. So, we were living in, for instance, my uncle's house. He had just bought it. He was just in the process of redecorating it. He was really proud of it. And she moved us in and all of his furniture and everything was still there, and all of his clothes and everything were still in the closets. We lived there for a few years, and he moved out because it was just, unbearable. And so she did this to another aunt. She always said she paid rent. I don't know what the rent situation was. Supposedly it was all in cash. But these people left their homes because of this. So yeah, having been in this situation as an adult, I totally kind of see what was going on. And this is why nobody in her family talks to her, and lots of other things. So I got in her phone a few years ago. I didn't get into her phone a few years ago. During COVID, my phone died. We were running the business and we were sharing a phone for a while. And in the course of that, I found a bunch of text messages in her phone where she was trying to basically blackmail and just harass people she knew, family members and just people she knew from her past, threatening them with all sorts of things if they didn't buy each of us houses worth like $500,000, $600,000, and she wanted each of us to have trust funds that paid off in the amount of at least $10,000 a month for the rest of our lives. I am not involved in that. I never had anything to do with it, never knew anything about it, didn't even know that she had any contact with these people since 1993. So my finding those text messages was like the very first thing I knew about it. So I'm stranded in a hotel with her. It's COVID, and I find this out. I don't know these people either, hardly. And so I went into her contacts and changed the phone numbers to wrong numbers so she couldn't harass them anymore. It was really the only thing I knew to do. And so then she thought they all blocked her, and you know, that worked. So so anyway, then so we took this trip to Atlanta. This was after COVID. Cars loaded with probably $300,000 worth of jewelry. And she's texting frantically on her phone the whole way, and so I'm suspicious because of all the stuff I found during COVID in her phone. And so when she would go check us in a hotel, or like going to the, you know, a gas station to use the restroom or something, I would check her phone. And I started screenshotting what I was finding, because she was having these online relationships with scammers online. And so, I mean, obviously they're scammers, but she was giving them, they were telling her that they, for instance, in this instance, the guy was telling her that he was a world-renowned surgeon. I should plug my phone in, it's gonna die. That he was a world-renowned surgeon, and that he worked in Damascus, Syria. He owned a mansion in Atlanta. Conveniently, we were headed to Atlanta. He didn't know that. And of course, he had a son. They all have an orphan son, a dead wife, like, you know. And he's, you know, handsome man, probably in his 40s, and she's, you know, 83. And so she starts sending him sexy pictures of herself, and I mean, it's just ridiculous, right? And he's wanting her to take care of his son, and then of course he wants her to start sending the son gift cards and gifts and stuff. So I screenshot the whole thing, and I'm like, oh my God. So this went on for a few days, you know, it was several days driving. And then she kept taking pictures of me and texting him, and I'm like, oh, this is not good. So I get in her phone some more. She's giving them the play-by-play, the itinerary of our trip. The hotels we're staying at, the room numbers of the hotels we're staying at, the restaurants we're eating at, the stores we're selling to, just every play-by-play, like what exit we're on, what gas station. I said, okay, done. So I scrapped the whole trip. We didn't sell any jewelry. I turned around, deadheaded back home. And of course, that's our money. That's our income for the year. You know, that's my rent for the next 6 months, and the bills and all this stuff. And so, and by then I had car payments. Well, no, I didn't have at that time, but I had all kinds of other payments. And so I thought, well, I don't know anything to do except come home and I traded in my car to kind of juggle some money, basically. And so, and just was working on selling online. It just screwed our income for the year. And so, and this is of course when she was living next door, because we'd already had this separation. Like, I just can't stand to live with you because you're crazy. And so I had her living next door because I thought, well, at least I can take her to buy groceries and stuff. And, you know, but like, I don't have to have this crazy train in my face 24 hours a day. Well, so this is the summer that for 4 months, she was going up and down the alleys, picking up couches and stuff to stack up in her apartment. It was just ridiculous what she was doing. She didn't pay her utilities for 4 months in the summer when it was like 100 degrees, over 100 degrees. And she told me she was going to put solar lights in the yard so she could bring them in at night to have light. And she had money in the bank. And, you know, I said, you know, or you could pay your electric bill, but she didn't. And finally I had a discussion with the landlord and said, you know, this is just not going to change. And so she moved on. She moved actually into my apartment, which was really not good. And then this just continued. We took more trips. And she just was escalating this. It was another scammer and another scammer and another scammer. And she was giving them the play-by-play everywhere we went. And she gives them all kinds of personal information. She gives them her social security numbers, PIN numbers, credit card numbers, account numbers. I can't stop her. And if she has that information on me, she gives that to them too. And so that's a real problem, you know. And so I just was to the end of my road. And then she started creating problems with customers, because I had figured out when we moved back to Texas, because we started this when I was 13. So this is a case of, after her divorce, she wanted to go, you know, she wanted to like go to Santa Fe and eat in fancy restaurants and stay in fancy hotels and, you know, go to, you know, different cities and go to theater and all this stuff. And so the way she funded this was I would make art and we would go sell it, and this paid for the lifestyle. So this started when I was 13. So I, you know, made a significant amount of money for many years that just basically, you know, it's really no different than, you know, the child star situation. And so, you know, when parents kind of take advantage. And but I never really had any real idea. Every check was made out in her name. Every check was made out in her name until about 7 or 8 years ago. I'm 55, so imagine, you know. And so this is just nuts. And so anyway, I got into the bookkeeping and I sorted out the business and we labeled it and branded it. I did all that. And when I did that, I figured out that she was making about 6% of the products we were selling, but getting half or more of the money. And it had been going on since I was 13 years old. And so this is where this division hit, you know. So for it, and I get messages from people that are like, you know, you're a real bitch. You should take care of your mother. I beg your pardon. I've been taking care of my mother since I was 13. So, and not to mention, I've been her psychiatrist, her you know, her psychologist. She's been a barnacle on my side for all of these years. And so, and you know, I try. I can't fix her. She's crazy. She's literally an undiagnosed schizophrenic with sociopathic disorder and also, you know, a bouquet of other things. It's not curable. It's not going to change. And I have tried everything for decades to get her treatment. So, and it's not treatable anyway. So anyway, so this whole thing, this round, I mean, this has gone on, with several of these. There was another scammer, where he was telling her he owned all of these private planes and he had a penthouse in New York and a penthouse in Chicago. And we would be on a trip and she would be like, oh, his name was Lisa. Lisa's flying to Lubbock to make us dinner tonight. And she was asking these men to buy, I live in a duplex. There's two duplexes side by side. And she was asking all of these men to buy her these duplexes so she could be the manager of my apartment. I mean, you know. And so, anyway, and they're all scamming her for money. I mean, the bank's constantly getting shut down. Everything's constantly getting compromised. We're always on the road a million miles from home with, you know, credit cards compromised. And so, finally, a couple of years ago, on the way home from one of those trips, I just drove her to New Mexico, to her hometown, where all of her family is, where she grew up, where everybody who has ever known her entire life lives. There's a web, you know, a huge network of people who are familiar with her. And I left her in a motel that had a kitchenette and said, done. You can afford this with your Social Security. I'm out of this. You know, you're probably going to have to get a job. But also, before this, so when we're in these two side-by-side duplex apartments, when she was refusing to pay her bills, she kept telling me, you have to pay my bills because the state of Texas will throw you in jail if you don't take care of your mother. And, you know, the state of Texas can kiss my ass if that's true. I don't think it is, but that's not going to happen. I mean, you know, I have never been married. I don't have kids. I've almost never dated because I've been attached to the sociopath all of my life, who is just full of psychological disorders. When I was younger, when I would go out on dates, I would come home and she would tell me that the person that I had gone out with was the bastard child of my dad, and that this had been set up so that I would be in an incestuous relationship with somebody. I mean, you know, of course I knew she was crazy, but like, you know, she's crazy. And why am I antisocial? I'm not personally antisocial, but you can't have her around anybody because nobody can wrap their brain around this, and nobody wants to, and I don't blame them. So I live this isolated life, and with her in my house, mind you, it's my house, my furniture, my stuff. I bought everything here when I moved in, brand new. She's taken over the downstairs. I can't stand to be around her. She's broken 25% of the dishes in my cabinet, and she ran a glass jar down the disposal, broke the dishwasher, because she said in the 1970s you put chicken bones down the disposal to sharpen the blades. And so, I mean, she's a nightmare to have around. It is an all-day, everyday catastrophe on every level. So I live, upstairs in this little beanbag chair in my studio, just, and it's stupid. So this is coming to an end. I'm not going to do this anymore. And so yeah, this whole Elon Musk thing, I have done everything I can to stop it. I had the police come out here and talk to her. She won't believe them. She believes that she is in a top secret program, part of the government, doing insider trading for Elon Musk, and that it's so top secret the local police don't have access to the security. And so she doesn't believe anything they say. And she thinks she's doing insider trading. She's on her phone all day, every day. They have taken over her phone. They've installed software on her phone, which, you know, she lets them do everything. If you call her up and say, "Hey, give me your social security number," she'll give it to you. You know, if you promise her you're going to give her $1,000, she'll give you her social security number, and she does it all the time. And so, you know, I've called every bank in town, and so this woman, you know, is getting scammed. And, you know, I mean, I've done everything I possibly can to thwart this. I have this online. Mainly, or it started because I was just thoroughly frustrated. You know, nobody has an answer to this because there is no answer to it. Everybody's initial reaction was just to die laughing, and then people come back at me and say, "You shouldn't, you know, that I'm the evil person for posting it. You know, people have to be warned about her. She's a train wreck, and she can't be stopped. She can't be stopped." This morning, or the last few days, she's been calling everybody under the sun trying to get loans. You know, every scammer in every legit place. She got a $400 loan last week. I transferred the money to pay utilities or something, you know, because she was going to give it to a scammer. She had a fit. She got another $200 loan yesterday, and I thought, forget it, just let her go. I gave her an eviction notice yesterday, you know, notice that she has to move in 30 days. And, you know, if she screws herself over, she screws herself over. She's going to do it. She just is. She cannot be stopped. So, you know, I know a lot of people have a lot of opinions about me, and you're free to think anything you want about me. I have been the parent and the psychiatrist and the only adult in this whole situation since I was 11 years old. And, you know, I've been hit with a brick wall on every corner. Even when the police were out here, you know, she's in a very, you know, we explained this, and they said, you know, you're in a real catch-22, because if she falls through the gaps on so many things. She makes too much money in Social Security to qualify for Medicaid. Medicaid is the only thing that will pay for a mental health evaluation. The state of Texas has laws that I can't force her into a mental health evaluation. If she doesn't want to get one, she doesn't get one. I do not want to be her guardian. I don't want anything to do with her. So, you know, I mean, the chips are just where they are, but I do have a right to live my own life, and I have a right to, you know, my own peace and sanity. And I just work too hard to be forced to live in this situation, and I'm not going to do it. So anyway, for anybody who has anything to say about it, you know, you're free to say anything you want, but God bless you. I hope you never have to live through something like this, because it has been absolute hell. So that's the story on Bonnie.